Since today is my 40th birthday, I decided to do a video where I plan on my next 40 years. And to start that, I want to look over some of the things I've accumulated and collected over those first 40 years. One of those being this Final Fantasy VII wall scroll, which is one of the first pieces of Final Fantasy merch that I bought when I did an impromptu road trip over to Cocoa Beach. Over here we can see my first copy of Final Fantasy VII that I played ages ago, and for some reason I wanted to frame it because I enjoyed it so much. And that got me on a path of collecting and wanting to display the things that I bought. In which case, as we can see here, I have this nice little hutch full of just action figures and statues and other bric-a-brac and other merch. I want to say though, one of the oldest pieces I have here is my actual original Virtual Boy, which my parents got me back in the day, probably for my birthday back in maybe 95, 96. I still actually have the original box up there, which somehow I've been able to keep relatively pristine over all these years. Now, for some context, my father passed away last year when he was 59 years old. My grandfather, his father, passed away when he was 51. My mother's father passed away when he was 72. Now, he's up there so that when the floods come, he'll stay high and dry. That was actually things that he would say to people, but I believe it was that or probably more likely the cost of being in the ground. Now, when we look at my predecessors, we notice that me making to 80 seems highly unlikely. But I know that they passed away from potential self-inflicted lifestyle choices. Smoking, excessive drinking, poor diet, poor stress management. I'm trying to avoid those, knowing that's what my predecessors passed away from. Now, I never really smoked. I drank when I was younger, but I lessened that over the years once its coolness and utility wore off. Actually, I haven't had a drink in years. My current vices are a lack of exercise and perhaps sole reliance on carbonated drinks. Will Dr. Pepper be my downfall? Or could it perhaps be the magical concoction that helps me surpass my predecessors? Only time will tell. Now, the first year everything's gonna be centered around is my retirement from the state in 2040, which means I'll be doing this walk from my Jeep to my warehouse door about 4,500 more times, as long as we don't move anywhere, which I don't think we'll be doing anytime soon. Now, when I retire, I'll collect about 45% of my top 5 years, which should be fine, except I took a mortgage out in 2019 that will last until 2049, your typical 30-year mortgage. Now, my goal is to have that paid down by putting more money towards the principal so that when I retire in May of 2040, it'll be paid off. I currently got it down to 2047, so in 3 years, I've basically reduced it down by 2. Currently, I'm on track to meet the goal by having it paid off by May of 2040, and maybe I'll even pay it down and have it paid off sooner, depending on what type of future challenges we might face. Challenges like healthcare. The problem with retiring in 2040 is I won't be able to collect Medicare until 2047. I may have to marry Adrian in early 2040 so that I can get on her health care because she'll still be working with the state at that time.
You could marry me now.
I also won't be able to collect Social Security benefits until 2049 when I turn 67. Now, Rose is scheduled to retire from the state after 33 years in October of 2050. I will theoretically be retired for 10 years before she does.
Lucky dog.
Once we are both retired, I would like for us to move out of Florida sometime by the end of 2051. Now, where we move to will depend on whoever has the best internet and probably logistical hub, like whatever has the best Amazon fulfillment or whatever service we're using at that point in time. We just want to make sure that we can get packages within as quick as possible. We've also, of course, taken into account natural disasters because we want to avoid those and somewhere where it's not too cold and not too hot most of the time. Of course, if we look into that now, that's not necessarily what's going to be like in 2050. Right now, if we were taking all those factors, it would be somewhere probably in southwest South Dakota, around the Rapid City area. Now, what will I be doing during my retirement? Hopefully not working, which is something that will mainly depend on my financial situation at the time. Luckily, working for the state, I might be able to go back after I retire and work at the state, maybe even at the same position that I leave at, which I probably won't do because that will prevent somebody else from being in that position. Now, I plan on having at least 20 years of retirement, which might be something that's going to be an extreme rarity for anybody from my generation, which is why I'm planning all of this. Out of my grandfathers, only one of them was able to retire, and my father never paid off any of the houses that he bought over his lifetime. My one grandfather that did retire spent most of his time vacationing and participating in his local moose lodge. This moose lodge here, which is no longer a moose lodge because they all unfortunately died out and is now a storage facility, is a place where he advocated for me to be a dishwasher at the age of 14, and that's where I had my first job. So fun fact, I've been working for 26 years of my life, which of course now we know is more than half of that. Some of that time I spent working 2 jobs to get by depending on my situation, and there's even a couple of months in 2009 and 2010 when I was on unemployment, but that was mainly following the financial crisis. Now what will I be doing during retirement? Up to retirement? Probably model building. It's a fun side hobby that I got into as mainly an alternative to gaming. Whenever I get caught up or fed up with gaming, I'll work on my models. Ironically, when my father was dealing with cancer, he brought up model building, and there's also a lot of social media buzz going around. My friend Jeff also got into it. And it's kind of a nice, just fun, just hobby to kind of just chill out to. And of course, in that process of getting into it, I bought a lot of kits, and just like with video gaming, I now have a back catalog, which at this rate will probably take me 5 years to complete, unless I inquire any more. Hopefully by the time I retire, I'll be making some progress on some of the dioramas I want to put in these display cubbies that I have set up. Now I don't plan on buying a new vehicle until I get the townhouse paid off. So very likely I'll be driving this Jeep for a very long time, which isn't that great considering this only gets 13 miles per gallon. So keep in mind, I've always been paying more than gas, regardless how much gas costs, than anybody, because most cars get at least 26 miles per gallon. Now going forward, I will be relying on Rose in any new vehicle that she buys. And if I ever do get a new vehicle, it will more likely be an electric one or automated one. But because my townhouses don't probably allow for charging stations, I'll have to deal with the challenges that come with charging it accordingly. I will likely continue to keep my hair long, something I've been doing on and off again since I was in middle school in 1994. Here's a very old picture of me with long hair. Now most of you, when you think of me, will probably think of me with long hair. With some of you maybe actually seeing me having cut short, or being colored, or that one time I had it buzzed and it just looked horrible. Now it's understandable that my hair won't last for the next 40 years, but I would like to try to keep it long as I can. Understandably, it's probably as long as it ever will get, because mainly I've been avoiding getting my hair cut, using mainly the excuse of COVID concerns and also preventing Rose from touching it or trimming it, even though yes, she does love having it long. Of course, from now until I die, I figure I'll be gaming. Something I will somehow end up doing more of after I retire, which is actually kind of odd considering I do a lot of gaming now. More than anybody else knows. Go ahead, ask around. Hopefully, I'll still be in the Microsoft Xbox ecosystem, if that's still around. I've actually been gaming for almost all my life, but primarily with Xbox, and which is going on now, I think, like for 17 years. See this infographic. In regards to pets, Kai will probably be the last pet that I own. I would love to get a cat because they're lower maintenance, but Rose is allergic. Speaking of Rose, I am very thankful to be spending my next 40 years with Rose.
Hopefully more than 40 years.
Hopefully more than 4 years. And I know that she will support me as much as I support her and try to make it as enjoyable and mainly less stressful as possible.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And as a reminder of what the next 40 years for me will be, they're kind of milestones. It's mainly my retirement from the state in 2040, which may make me get potentially married to Rose before then, so I have health care because I won't be able to collect Medicare until 2047.
Before then? Yay!
My mortgage theoretically matures in 2049, but it'll be done way before then, so I'm not too worried about that. I won't be able to collect Social Security until 2049. Rose retires in 2050, and then hopefully by the end of 2051 we can move out of Florida and go wherever we want to go.
Somewhere nice and cool.
Somewhere a little bit
hot.
Somewhere that's a lot cooler than Florida, where we have now been the majority of our lives at this point.
Yep.
Or all of their lives.
My entire life.
But I just want to thank everybody for watching, and maybe hopefully this will motivate some people to start thinking about what they're going to do in their retirement and just trying to get everything plotted out. I know it's very difficult to do, but most people in our circles now are getting to that middle age, and it doesn't hurt to think about it. And this is what I currently have planned. So If you only have to watch one of my videos, just watch this one and wait 40 years for an update. But as always, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and I will catch you next time.